Hi, everybody. Welcome to ZealZaddy. I'm Scott. My pronouns are he, him. And welcome to StoryTalk, where every picture tells a story. Tonight, we are venturing down a rabbit hole that, for me, started recently. And I am innately curious about almost everything. So I had, of course, to do a show about it. So we're going to go into cosplay. Now, this is the first of 2 episodes. Next week is going to be on hair and makeup. This one's on costume. So actually, I think that's maybe my first 2-part episode. How cool. So we have 4 amazing cosplayers on tonight and with some very unique traits that I think are really going to be fun to explore. These are people who do cosplay for Renfests, conferences, cons of all kinds, in anime, in fantasy, science fiction, what have you. So I'm really excited to dig down the hole here. If you have questions, just put question in the chat right before your question. Make it easy for me to find. You can use the clip command. That is !clip if you want to save the last 30 seconds of something in case it was really cool. It'll be saved into Twitch so you can check it out later. I love those. I use them for promos or to sometimes I'll put together a little grouping of them if there's something really interesting. We are an affiliate with Only Crits, and we're partnered with Underground Oracle, both of which are amazing companies. I will drop the link in a little while. You can save 12% on dice from Only Crits, who have some amazing dice, by the way. We will take a break halfway through. You can gather your questions, and I will be showing in that intermission period some of the work of the cosplayers that are on here tonight. So let's bring them all on. Let's get everybody saying hi, and let's get the questions going. I am so excited to learn and talk to everybody, and I can't shut up. So why don't we go around, let everybody say hi. We're just going to go clockwise from top left, which is Warden Asteria or Asteria. I think both work, don't they?
Yeah, both work.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Warden Asteria or Asteria, whatever you prefer. My pronouns are they, them. I've been cosplaying for about 10 or 11 years now. I also do a lot of actual play TTRPG stuff, and I'm super excited to be here.
All right. Captain Grayson.
Hi, I'm Captain Grayson, or just Grayson is fine as well. My pronouns are she, her. I have also been cosplaying, I feel, for about 10 or 11 years, probably a little bit longer than that. I also, I feel like I'm just echoing, but I also do a lot of tabletop and actual play stuff. You can find me on any of these weird platforms that we have to navigate in this day and age under Captain Grayson, but you can also find me playing my lovely Bard Locke over on the Charisma Saving Show.
Nice. Stasia.
Hi, I'm Stasia. You can find me on Bluesky and Twitter as Stasia Kasse. I do a lot of work in the tabletop area, indie spectrum. I do actual plays, and I help run Nerds with Dice, and I've been cosplaying for about 10 years. I don't know, whatever 2013 was.
11. All right. And Haley.
Hi, I'm Haley. You can find me at Haley Son of Ander on all the platforms that I use. I specialize in children's cosplay and costumes for kids, custom costumes for kids, specifically in younger children that are in strollers, diapers, car seats, things like that, and making them adaptable and cheap because of the children's growth rates. But I've been cosplaying in that arena for about 12 years now.
Which is amazing. Honestly, I didn't know that was a thing. I mean, I saw kids in costume.
Yeah.
I just didn't know that was is industry or market a thing? I don't know. I don't know what the right word is. I'll figure it out by the end of the show. Don't tell me yet, because I don't want to take away my challenge for the night. So if you have questions, drop them in chat. Just use question in front if you can, just to make it a little bit easier. Our guests can ask each other questions too. I don't want to make it seem like it's limited to chat. It is not. And I have, I don't know, probably 1.2 billion questions lined up that I'll probably get through about 20 of tonight. I'm going to start with something just the easiest, simplest thing. Why did you start cosplaying? And anybody can answer in any order. You can hop in if you have an idea. Some people need to mull things over a moment. You don't have to.
Just like don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to cut anyone off. I feel like that's the biggest thing. For me, I'm unfortunately a theater kid. And I went to theater school for, you know, that was my big aspirations in life. And, you know, I spent a lot of time as a little kid just like always playing dress up. And then when I found out that I didn't have to stop doing that, I was like pretty excited about that. 'Cause like ever since I was like a really little kid, I used to pretend I was Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, like until I was like from 4 until I was like 8. My parents had to listen to me sing "We're Off to See the Wizard" incessantly. But like now I get to do that, and it's completely different, I guess, and other people around me also are doing it, so it feels less strange.
Yeah.
I started cosplaying because of my friends in high school. So if any of you are watching, it's your fault. We did Homestuck, and I was roped into that.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So I was really roped into it because of the community around me. And then once I was actually in costume, I was like, wait, this is fun. I want to keep doing this. And then I never stopped.
The never stopped part seems to be run across everybody in cosplay. They got started, did it once, and it was over.
Yeah, I started sewing when I was quite young. I got my first sewing machine when I was about 10, and I first started making clothes for my Barbies. I had like a video game, and it was like a Barbie fashion video game, and I was obsessed, and that really taught me a lot about how patterns look, and I kind of went from there, but really didn't get into like the cosplay. We kind of got in the cosplay scene on accident. I made a very obnoxiously elaborate costume for my baby when he was really little to win a computer. There was like a Halloween costume contest, and we did end up winning the computer, so that was pretty cool. But we ended up going to a small convention like the next year and threw it on him, and I found out about that cosplay was a thing, and it was really big, and it just kind of escalated from there.
Nice.
I grew up, so I was also given my sewing machine by my parents at a young age, and I worked on fixing holes or fixing zippers and creating various odds and ends around the house. And then once I got a little bit older, past high school, I realized, oh, look, I can make costumes and be cool. And again, like everybody else, it just kind of didn't stop.
Yeah.
Did it make you cool, though? That's the important part.
Well, I think it made me cool.
Nice. So if you had a choice, a costume, you want to do a costume and you have, I'm going to put a limit of 2 weeks. Would you rather buy, thrift, make, or some combination of all of those, the costume?
Definitely a combination for me. I buy several pieces and then make some recognizable things that are like character identifiers. just so I don't stress myself out trying to
I
make it
feel
all.
I feel pretty similar, except I think I would go the like make thrift route. And like I think it's because I come from like a I want to say most of us do where there weren't like a lot of options in terms of cosplay. Um, there was like not a lot of stores or wig shops or there were like very specific sites that I feel like everyone used. And so like someone who didn't have a lot of money or like also like didn't maybe necessarily want to buy from these websites sometimes because I didn't like the quality. I would just like to thrift and maybe make those pieces like you said that were pretty character specific.
Honestly, I think I just do a closet cosplay and grab whatever's in my closet and make something.
Yeah,
That's going to be the easiest with that time frame for me specifically.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the similar thread of if I can't find pieces to make it more accurate to the true design, I'd rather pinpoint what character elements are the most recognizable and then work within what I already have.
All right, now I'm
Yeah.
going to extend that from 2 weeks. You have 4 months. What's your method then?
I think I'm not gonna speak for everyone else, but I think for many cosplayers, you start if you're making thrifting or buying, you kind of start with thrifting. You go and you look at all the thrift stores and see what you can find at Goodwill, see what you can find at the Restore, see what you can find at the Dig and Save. And you start there and see if you can gather pieces that you buy and turn into something else or things that look like what you're doing. Because cosplay can end up being an expensive hobby if you buy everything or buy all the craft supplies. So I think a lot of cosplayers start with thrift because you can find sometimes like that exact thing that you need for like $2, and that's part of the joy.
Yeah.
I also dive into what I already have in terms of previous cosplays because, doing it for 10 plus years, you accumulate a lot of things, whether that's wigs or fabric or like accessories. So my first thought is, okay, I want to do this concept. What wigs of this color do I already have that I can maybe save, some bucks on not having to buy a completely new wig for this character, and what can I Frankenstein together from things I'm never going to wear again but just kept just in case.
Yeah, I don't know if the time frame like changes much for me. I feel very similar in that like I think it's kind of getting that list down and like you said going to the thrift store and like trying to check off those boxes and then like using that extra time to like build those very specific pieces or props or making sure the wig is styled the way you want it to be styled, just like taking and being able to polish those certain things because I've certainly finished a costume in 2 weeks.
Yeah, my assumption was everybody has finished one in a ridiculous rush, but it's not the preferred way. If you have time, you can really like go all out.
Yeah, and I feel like you kind of choose those costumes. Like one of those costumes that I finished, we did like a soul eater group, and so like that's relatively easy. I mean, Soul is wearing like red pants. He's wearing like a bomber jacket. So like it was easier to complete than something that would be like super intricate, like I don't know, Zelda's dress or something, or like
Yeah.
So funny enough, I start most of my cosplays at the 4 month start. So I did Shadowheart and Keyleth both in 4 months. And Triss.
Oh wow.
That includes sourcing everything. So I am weird and I am a gremlin who sits on the floor and sews at the wee hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I start mine at about 2 to 4 months as well, mainly because of size changes of the kids. They grow so fast. I can't start them too early. I have to wait, or else they won't fit them because I have to make new ones every year. So far, I've had to make new ones every year because they outgrow them.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
So usually I have like a couple characters floating around in my head all year of, what I want the next cosplay to be. So it could be this character, this character, this character. And so as I'm going through the year from con to con, I just sort of keep my eye out on things of like, oh, I've just found this at this store. This could work for this character. And if it's a significant enough piece, that's kind of how I build, and solidify what character I'm going to do next. So a lot of my characters, I complete them in a very short time frame because I've done very slowly over time compiling all the pieces already.
So when you build you've built up a lot of pieces over time. What are the most reusable parts of costumes, and what are the least reusable? So I imagine there's some things that get very specific and aren't very reusable, so they actually become more costly in that they only can be used once or twice, and some things, like I see people reuse. This is a prop, but like elf ears, like easily every time they do an elf, they're using the same ears most of the time. Although, Asteria, you had some interesting ones with little ridges under them. I was like,
yes,
those are not reusable as easily.
Give me 1 second.
When you had
you still have them here because I was too lazy to put them away. So I personally can't do the kind of elf ears that are like a solid rubber and then just have like the two little like hook thingies. I need to like spirit gum them down because usually I'm doing a lot of characters that have curly hair that's very heavy, and those it knocks them out of place. So this is a brand called Ardani. Oh, cool. They make the elf ears that I use. So you can see here, these are like sea elf ears. So they have the little fins, and you just put like spirit gum like here and here, and then you just like hook them on like that. And awesome. So like these are very specific ears, right? They're for a sea elf or sea elf like creatures. So I can only really use them for certain characters. But yeah, elf ears are a huge investment if you really like cosplaying sci-fi and fantasy. And I would say also like gloves, accessories, depending on the kinds of characters that you like to cosplay. Wigs can also be highly reusable. Depends on how crazy you need to style the wig. But I've reused the same wig for a number of characters before, and I would say those are the most recyclable in my opinion.
I think some base layers too can be pretty reusable, like a black jumpsuit, belts, holsters, are pretty reusable as well.
What about shoes? Because I see so much variety in shoes, and I was like, and that has to be a very high cost in many cosplays, because you're not gonna. Maybe you will. Like, can you find shoes and pay less that are worthy of a cosplay generally, or do you have to get specialty shoes from specialty suppliers?
I typically go to Goodwill first, just because that's my local thrift store, and look there first for shoes and make sure that they have good, solid inserts still, and they're in decent shape in terms of like comfort, because you're going to be walking a lot. Yeah. And then there's lots of tutorials on YouTube on how to turn those into boots or other things using fabric. You can just hot glue it on there. You don't have to sew. Make it easy on yourself. No one's going to know. And you attach the fabric to the shoes. You just sacrifice them. They're just cheap shoes. And then you glue the fabric on there in whatever aesthetic you want. And especially if they're like tall thigh high boots, something like that would be nearly impossible to find for everybody's like body shape, and they can get really, really expensive. So a lot of people will wear pantyhose or tights of some kind. And then you kind of like sew a tight boot shoe situation. So you would sew the fabric up onto the legging or the tight so that they stay up and they stay on, and they don't move around through the day. And they usually look pretty solid.
Cool.
So
Go on.
I'm personally in the camp where I don't care what my shoes look like. I've got a pair of like Docs and Timberlands that I use for most of my cosplays because they're the most comfy ones I have. And then if they don't match it, too bad.
Right.
I'm not here to always look pretty. I want to be comfortable. If I'm walking 10 miles a day in this costume, that's already a lot of work.
It is.
I think too you can kind of get away with I cosplay like a lot of like shonen protags or like a lot of young boy characters whose shoes aren't like necessarily the focal point of their character design either. So like a lot of the times I find something that's like very similar in terms of looks. Again, also going to the thrift store and looking to see like if it matches pretty decently. But even then when it's like kind of more covered, as long as there's like the silhouette of it is always kind of like what you're going for. So if you get like a big chunky sneaker because the characters in the show have like bigger feet or whatever, and then like just painting or adding whatever you can to it, adding like any EVA foam and stuff like that. I think unless the shoe is like a focal point of the character, that's when it becomes like not really necessary. Like when you're looking at a character and you're going like, man, those shoes are wild, or like
Bayonetta.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like that's more of when you kind of focus on it. And like I don't mean it in that like they have to be out there wild shoes, because I think a lot of people I cosplay Luffy from One Piece a lot of the time, and his sandals get mentioned all the time because he's in terrain that is just like he shouldn't be wearing sandals. And so like it clearly is a character focal point. And so that's when I tend to focus on it a little bit more, and not when it's just like hiding under a jean or like under a dress or something.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna continue to hear a theme from all of us about like when you're getting into cosplay, don't be too hard on yourself. Like you can enter where you enter, and it doesn't need to be great. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be exact. It just needs to be fun. So like just focusing on those like character focal points or things about them that will be recognizable and people will recognize you when you're playing. You will have a great time, and people will engage with you and join in the fun with you. And it doesn't need to be perfect.
Yeah. So when you get it perfect, and so there's a question in chat. I'm using that to lead in. So
Yeah.
I'm going to expand the question a little bit. So the question is, what's your reaction when someone says they love your cosplay? But I'm gonna extend it. What is your reaction when the 150th person says they love your cosplay at a con and they stop you again? Because at cons you get, when you're in cosplay, expect to be stopped all the time. Everyone will go, "Can I take a picture or take a video or whatever it is that they're gonna do?" So what's your reaction when you first get in and you get it, and what's your reaction after a whole day of it?
I feel like the con scene has like changed a little bit, so I'm not. I know a lot of people. I feel like people have been talking about how it's kind of different, but given my experience, I feel like there was always a con etiquette, and for the most part, a lot of people do understand that, like, if you're eating, like, don't bother you. But I've certainly had people like take photos of me eating, or take photos of me like sitting with my friends because they're like characters they ship, or like stuff like that. But for the most part, like the compliment is really always well received, and it's really nice to get that feedback. I think everyone here can kind of also like has been maybe part of the conversation when someone goes like, "Oh, you're like the best one I've ever seen," and like that feels a little bit uncomfortable because like it, you know everybody else is working really hard and like you know that like yeah, I put a lot of work into my costume, but like that doesn't mean someone else didn't, or it's like a weird compliment to navigate. um and like I've certainly gotten it a few times, but it's always like compliments are always, even if it's the same person that you see later at the convention and they stop you again and they say like, "Hey, I really like your costume. I just wanted to tell you again." Um, it's not exhausting. I think there's like a part of it that like you're expecting it, and so like it's welcome in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's an aspect for me where it is performative. Like I am signing up to be entertainment because I understand how like I'm cosplaying the character because I love the character and I'm going to meet people who also love the character. So I love when people either shout it out over their shoulder or they stop you for a picture. Um, there's like a sub answer for me because I tend to cosplay a lot of characters that are particularly niche and not super not like known in the zeitgeist. So when they compliment like my cosplay just because they like how it looks but they don't really know the character, there's also a sense of accomplishment there of like, yes, I've done the goal of being visually interesting, and created like a good costume. And the thing that makes me uncomfortable sometimes is usually I do couples cosplays with my boyfriend. And a lot of the time, not all the time, I would say maybe 30% of the time, I'm asked for a picture, but he's not, even though we are very clearly like doing a couples cosplay. So there's a lot of times where I have to choose, like, do I force the issue and say both of us together, or if I just let them take the picture of me only, because I don't like the feeling of
Exclusion.
the exclusion, whether that's because I'm femme presenting and that's more what they're into or not. Like if I'm doing a group cosplay or a couples cosplay, like you're getting the photo of all of us. So that's the only thing that I don't really like, is when it's, especially if there's an air of like I am pushing you out of the conversation so I can take a picture of your partner. I don't really like that.
Yeah.
I think to like tack on to your point too of like it being performative, like it's kind of also to remember that like adults aren't the only ones that are necessarily there and looking at you. And if you're cosplaying a character that is like beloved by children, if you're like kind of a mean person to them, like you are that person for them. And so like you're really going to make the experience for them. And so like Disney princesses, for example, or like just beloved characters, when like someone is coming to look at you, then like, but I feel like there's like a bit of kid in all of us at conventions anyway, so to like be someone's favorite character and then like not be that cool, also kind of sucks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I going back through and looking at photos to pull some photos for this, it's just seeing the joy on my kids' faces and interacting with some of their favorite characters in the photos is just it's delightful. So yeah, if you are playing and cosplaying as a character that is more kid centric in its design, I think that is important to keep in mind that they don't have that differentiation as much, and it is magical for them to meet the characters that they're fans of.
In your case in particular, do you have the issue where they ask to take pictures of one or a couple of your kids, but not the adults, or the adults but not the kids, and you get that exclusionary concern going on there too?
Yeah, it's most often they want to take pictures of the kids or with the kids, and the important thing is that the child consents
Mm-hmm.
to that. So we didn't do a lot of photos we with other people when they were very young, um, unless that person agreed to like not post them anywhere and to just have them for themselves. We were pretty careful about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now that they're older and they can consent, it is up to them whether or not they want to participate in those photos. Especially one of our children can sometimes get a little overwhelmed. They're on the autism spectrum, and at some point, just the peopleness of it all
Mm-hmm.
can be a lot, and they've already taken 30, 40 pictures and they just don't want to take anymore, and when they're done, they're done. And we usually are off to the side and not in the pictures. I'm typically not in the pictures, but the safety aspect is the number one thing that I'm
Yeah.
concerned about in those situations. But I want them to be able to play and have fun and find joy in this community.
Yeah.
And so we also limit the scope of what cons we attend. And that's something that we vet very heavily before we decide to take our children to a convention. Is how is the cosplay scene? How is the safety? What are the protocols and mechanisms and things that they have in place to make sure they will be protected, they won't be sexualized, or they won't be grabbed or hurt or touched without their consent.
Yeah.
So we're pretty specific. We kind of do that work on the front end, so it makes the whole con a lot less stressful.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I didn't know that was a. I'm not. I mean, I don't want to get into how you vet a con, but I think it's very interesting that that's a thing that is doable.
Hmm.
I do want to get back to some of the costuming questions, and there's a question in chat I'm going to get to. I promise. But I do want to get back to the costuming, and I want to, because there are some things that I find that I think are going to be invaluable to someone getting into it. I imagine when you got started, you must have run into some aspect of the costuming process that you found particularly tricky that you thought would be easy.
All of it.
Yeah.
Math.
Ooh,
The math?
Yeah, the
Did
math.
somebody say the math?
of sewing.
Yeah, the math.
No. I'm
And
good
like
at
trying
math.
to like so like I think the biggest thing for me, it like I'm terrible with numbers. Like you give me your phone number, I'll forget it in 2 seconds. And that I just like math is not my strong suit, and I love rolling dice. Go figure. But like I very much had friends that like I would cosplay with, and they were so good at scaling things because characters are not your height. And so like scaling back a weapon to be the right proportions for your height or for who you are as a person, and making sure that you can carry that around all day is like things that my brain just doesn't want to do. And so like it's always the most difficult part of like starting the project. And like for a creative person, I'm also just like really bad at destroying things to make things. And so like I'll buy fabric and then I'm like, do I need to cut it? Like I don't want to do that. It's like this weird disconnect until the thing is made. And I think like every person who kind of does art, there's like an ugly stage, and that's like a really frustrating part
Yep.
of the cosplay, that you're just like, maybe I'm not that great at this. And then, you know, you finally get to the point where you are happy with it, hopefully. But for the most part, math for me, math and sewing, math and prop building, I don't like it.
Yeah, I find weapons in prop building to be pretty. It was pretty difficult for me, and I'm still really learning a lot because the sewing I've kind of got the math I've got, luckily, but I'm used to being able to just pick up a new hobby. Like I can see something and my background is in engineering, and so I'm really good at reverse engineering things and seeing something and going, "Oh, I know how that's made," and be able to like just do it. And so whenever I didn't expect that whenever I hit a roadblock and I can't do something on the first try, that I will just set it aside. It was something more that I discovered about myself is that I have to like and about the community is that happens to everybody. That like it's not normal to be able to make something on your first go. So when that happened to me, I found that's a difficult hurdle for me and personally with my ADHD brain.
Stasia, Asteria, anything that you found particularly complicated when you first started that you thought would be easy and wasn't?
Drafting my own patterns. I don't do that anymore. I tried one time.
It was hard enough you
like,
just
nope.
stopped at it.
So I don't draft my own patterns. I buy them and I modify them to what I need. And then props. I don't make my own props. If it's like a weapon or something, I find like parts of it online that I can glue together or I have somebody make it. It's not, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I find that like the finishing at the end is also very difficult. That last 10% on anything is really hard.
Again, with like the destroying, like you have like this nice polished costume and then you have to distress it and you're just like, do I?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Distressing is one of my favorite parts because it's so cathartic.
I'm sending it to you.
Yeah, I like
There's
hardly
a
ever
team
do
up
it.
coming.
Yeah. Similarly to Stasia, am I saying that right?
Yeah, close enough. It's Stasia.
Stasia. Similar to Stasia, I do not draft my own patterns. I barely use actual patterns, which is don't be like me. Use patterns and do it to the instructions, and then figure it out from there if you need to. And then props, I don't really do props either. But most of that reason is because I just can't be bothered with the weapons check and peace bonding at cons, especially nowadays. It's gotten way, way, way stricter, and it to me isn't worth it to like have to like zip tie something, a prop that goes in my hand to like my belt loop for the whole day. Like I want to be able to hold the prop if I need to.
Yeah.
And then you have that like glaring like red zip tie.
Yeah. So I usually do costumes that don't have props, and if they do have props, I'll take my own separate photos, either before the con or after. So that was an unexpected one, because peace bonding used to be way more chill, and you could actually bring like, for better for worse, you could actually bring like prop guns as long as they had like a clear like orange thing that indicated they were fake. And now it's like you can't do anything. So I salute people who still bring props to con.
Yeah. Do all of you have a sewing machine, by the way? Because it's going to lead into my next question.
I need a new one.
Outside of your sewing machine, what are the most important tools you've found that you just couldn't live without? Like, I love to cook. I have great knives, but the most important tool outside of my knives is my garlic press. So I imagine in cosplay, you have your sewing machine, your sewing kit is your lead tool. What are the other tools that really complete and round out your toolbox that you just couldn't live without? You'd just be miserable. You could probably do it without, but you'd be miserable without it or them.
ironing board and iron, and a steamer, like a continual steamer, because you can steam fabric, but you can also style wigs with a steamer. And then this is kind of like a preview for next week, but high quality makeup brushes. Those are the things that I would not be able to do what I do without them.
I would say, oh yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Hot glue gun, a hot glue gun, and safety pins.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and Velcro.
Safety pins at a convention are,
Oh my gosh.
you need them.
Yeah.
But I would also say hot glue gun and heat gun. Just because heat guns are specific tools for the prop making, probably less for the sewing and fabric. But if you're making armor and stuff, like molding EVA foam and Warbler for, yeah, it's great. But I would agree with the steamer as well. I think I think people undervalue like what a non-wrinkled costume also kind of brings to the table, in that like it's just like a little step of like being a little more put together. Not that I've worn a wrinkled costume, so like not that having a wrinkled costume isn't. It's just like that little bit of like, if you're thinking like, why doesn't my costume look a specific way? It might be that. Like it might literally just be that it needs to be steamed.
If you are doing armor or any like EVA foam work, this is like the most important thing you can buy. This is I don't know if it's Barge's cement. Like don't skimp out and get something else. It's at every hardware store. Buy the brand. I'm telling you, it save you hours. It will save you hours to just get the right adhesive.
Nice.
I think my big one is magnets go a long way. If you want to like connect things and you don't want to use Velcro, and have a tube of super glue. Not cheap super glue, good instant dry super glue. Because sometimes things don't want to stick together while you're at a con, and you just kind of go boop, and it's fixed.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's anybody who's getting started. I think it can be very confusing. You know, just you get the idea, you buy material, and then what do I do next? We're gonna get back to that in a minute. I do want to get that question. It was in chat.
Wait. One more thing.
Okay.
Oh, sharp pair of scissors that you don't use for anything else. Do not use them for anything else.
Yeah, fabric scissors that like are not used for paper. They're not used for plastic bags. They're not used for anything. They're just used for like fabric. Again, it saves you so much time.
Yeah, you should be able to right through the cloth. Apparently, that's how I always see it in the shows. So the question was, is there any particular cosplay you did that got a much bigger or a much smaller reaction than you thought it would get?
Honestly, I did Keyleth last year when the show had just came out and like nobody knew who I was. It was wild.
That is wild. I think opposite direction for me. I feel like the costume that I put the least amount of effort into, mainly because I didn't see the point in making a uniform, is Hinata from Haikyuu. I get like a lot of attention as that character, mainly because we're very similar. We're I think I pull off the character really well. But I've put the least amount of work into the character. I styled the wig and I painted some orange stripes on some white sneakers, and like that's it. It's super comfy. It's the chillest costume I have. But I'm always stopped for photos, and I'm always yeah, it gets a bigger reaction than some of the other things I've done in the past. Like I've done Gimli and like that's like, I don't want to say that also isn't, but I would say not on par even.
Yeah, last year we did Owl House. And we spent all this time doing the costumes and like 3D printing things and all this work. And then I ended up making my husband's costume in the hotel room the night before the con. So we drove down and then I made it like in the hotel room and out of like cardboard and acrylic paint. And it got like he got stopped like nonstop. But I mean, part of it was the play aspect that he had like a hooty voice and was like having a good time with it and making people laugh. And but yeah, it got a huge reaction and it was like the least effort costume.
Like I said, I cosplay a lot of niche or not as well known characters, so I'm used to not getting stopped. And if I do get stopped, I'm used to it feeling like, oh, you just thought I looked cool, but you don't know who I am. But I did a Yasha like 2018, 2017, somewhere around there. And it was kind of a closet cosplay. It was all like real clothes. It wasn't any of her actual designs. It was just sort of what can I make that emulates her style with what I already have. And I got a very curly wig for it. Very kinky, very curly, with the ombre. And I just sort of styled it up and, you know, did makeup that I thought was very Yasha with the stripe and everything. And I thought it was just going to be like, you know, the same as usual. Like Yasha's a well-known character because Critical Role Campaign 2 is happening right now. But I have other friends who do like more accurate Yashas. And so I thought, you know, they were going to get more of the attention. But funny enough, I just posted it to Twitter at the time, and Ashley saw it and commented on it, and then it was like, boom, boom, everything exploded. And I had never gotten like that big of a reception either at a con or online before, and I was like, what the hell is happening? So that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
The Critical Role effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you nail it in a way that they love it, of course, amazing. One thing that I find, I don't want to say find, that I suspect with cosplay being so specialized of a I don't call it industry, of a market, I guess. Where do you find patterns, and how do you find the things you would need to be able to build a lot of these costumes? I mean, some things require more than spandex. So how do you do it? If you don't make your own patterns, I mean, maybe you make your own patterns, maybe that is the way, but I guess ancillary to that, is there like a community of people that share their patterns and stuff too? Like, I was trying to figure out, where do you find this stuff? There has to be a way, and I can't imagine it's a bunch of big companies because everything is
I mean,
niche.
it kind of is now,
Some
though.
are. Yeah.
Mainly because like a lot of the people who have kind of made cosplay into viable careers for themselves, I would say that there's like maybe like 3 giants in the cosplay community. And like I know there are other big cosplayers, but I would say like Yaya Han is who I'm going to talk about mainly because she partnered with Simplicity and like made a bunch of patterns and like custom fabrics as well. And so like when we're talking about how like when a lot of us first started in cosplay, like there was none of that. There was nothing. There was like there was 2 competing wig stores and like maybe one place where you could buy costumes that wasn't like an overseas supplier, and then like maybe 2 or 3 contact lens websites. But when it started to kind of like go more into the mainstream, I mean, like you could buy Warbler at like, I don't know that this is me being very Canadian. I don't know if you have Michael's down there. I feel like you all have.
We do. Yeah.
We don't have Joann's up here. We have a thing called Fabric Land, or like just like small mom and pop kind of other retail outlets for fabric. And so like you can access that stuff just like at a Michael's, right? Like Michael's was selling Warbler for a while, which was like, I think Cosplay Supply was like the only website that sold Warbler for a really long time. And so like as it got more popularized, I feel like those things did become more accessible, which is really nice. And like again, I think all of us are here kind of like talking about how we make costumes or how we like source or thrift things. But like buying costumes is also okay. And
Yes.
like it's like super easy to do that now. And like where like quality used to like border more on like Halloween costume, I feel like because of its popularity, it's also at least kind of like had a comeuppance a little bit as well. And so I actually think it's easier to get into cosplay now than it was before. Because I remember just like being online like really early cosplay days and like seeing people make like elf armor from Lord of the Rings out of like linoleum tiles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or like the stormtrooper armor, they were like melting PVC pipes in their oven.
Yeah.
And like I'm like, you're gonna kill yourself.
And like I remember very specifically, we used to go to we had a friend who worked in the mall, and when the mall would give away their signs, like their polystyrene signs, we would take them to make things out of, because like that didn't exist, and like now you can just buy it. And so like as much as we kind of talk about how like that's expensive and cosplay can be a really expensive hobby, like I think from those early days there's like this really nice kind of community that like built itself up and like also has all of these different ideas on how to build things, and that they don't have to necessarily be conventional things, but those tools are there for you to use. And like with the armor, there's tons of people that have like those patterns for you to also use. So like Evil Ted is one of them, Kamui is another. You could just like buy those patterns from them, or buy books that help you modify and make your own versions of these things that people have already like taken the time to break down for you.
Yeah, and like you said, there's no shade in buying your full cosplay, everything that you're wearing. And then there's things like what is it called, like where people go to Disney and they dress like a
Bounding?
Oh,
yeah,
bounding,
you can do something like that. I think that that's a little bit more in the zeitgeist of most people, or a lot. I just call it closet cosplay. I don't know what the appropriate term is, but like things that are reminiscent. But you could also take those Halloween costumes and you can like upgrade them. So if they have like a little half mask, that's like plastic, but it's the right color tone, it's got the right molded shape, you can modify it and make it more comfortable to wear long term. You can build out the back of it with foam and glues and things like that. So you can start with something and you can build it over time. You don't have to build it for your first con. You can just wear one piece, have just the mask. I feel like characters like Deadpool are a good one for that, because you could literally wear anything. You can wear pajamas and throw on a Deadpool mask and you're good to go. So you can start with like one piece and then each year build it up. I mean, I know that we are all talking about making new costumes every year and what we're thinking about throughout the year. But when you're first starting out, you don't need to jump like fully into the deep end. Like it's okay to just put a toe in and have fun with it.
Yeah.
getting into the making of stuff, I get all of my patterns from Etsy actually,
Yeah,
and then
Etsy's a great resource.
occasionally Joann's. The problem with Etsy is now it's getting full of like ads and random drop ship stuff, so you have to really learn how to search to use it and find what you want.
Oh,
A great way to like also like draft your own patterns and stuff is if you really like a piece of clothing that you have and it's similar in shape, you could also just like use that to kind of find where your connections are in the piece of fabric. And then that way you can build outwards from there. And it'll help you kind of on that journey of drafting. But a lot of people also, like if you're doing something form fitting, that's really intimidating and hard sometimes. But using some saran wrap and some duct tape, just like cover that
Yeah.
surface area and draw out what you need from it. And that'll help you kind of get a better idea of it. And you might not get it the first time, and that's okay. And that's fine. But like you don't even need all of the tools. And this is me kind of getting on my soapbox because I'm actually a librarian by trade. But if you also just want to use your local library, most of them have like things called maker spaces, and like you can
Yep.
use sewing machines and stuff like that there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a lot of them have
Oh.
subscriptions to, you can like go and get the library subscription pass to go to the makerspace. And at those makerspaces, they have all kinds of tools and they train you how to use the tools. Um, so yeah, check out your local makerspace. I mean, they have like saws and planers and sanders, Dremel tools, sewing machines,
3D
irons, heat guns,
printers.
3D printers. People know how to do stuff there, so you can get a lot of great advice about epoxies and painting and coloring and all kinds of stuff like that.
yeah. I'm gonna add a little bit there, and it's not directly in cosplay. My middle daughter, she's in college in New York studying set design, right, for film and stage. And she went up there. I honestly didn't know she knew how to use a screwdriver. A year in, she was building guillotines out of steel that she was grinding and building herself that had to work, and ballistas and props and they did not let anyone use 3D printing for the first year. Nothing could be 3D printed. And it was such an interesting lesson to see that in 1 year, going from not knowing how to use anything to knowing how to build everything,
Yeah.
was just stunning. And yeah, I know it's the same here, that if you really get into it, you can become really good in a year or under a year.
And it also teaches you like skills that you can apply to other parts of your life. Like we'll go out shopping for new clothes when it's time, and my boyfriend might try something on and he'll be like, I like how it fits here but it doesn't fit here, and I can be like, well, if you really like this piece, I know how to hem it or tuck it in or whatever. So it also gives you skills so that you can apply it to other parts of your life.
Unless
I
it's from
can't-
Temu, it'll fall apart.
I can't tell you how many times that I have used cosplay skills at work. It's like, no pun intended, astronomical.
literally how I got my job.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're a little bit past the midway mark. We're gonna take a real quick break, 5 minutes. We'll be right back. Everybody, hold your horses. When we come back, we're gonna show some of their work and ask them questions about their specific cosplays. See you in a few minutes. Bye, everybody. All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm going to bring up some of the cosplays of the individuals here, and we can all ask questions about them. I had a couple on all of them. I may be off in that maybe they're not costume. First off, that third eye is amazing.
Yeah, that's just
Was that a prop or makeup or what was that?
No,
Or do you have a third eye for real?
I have a third eye for real. That's
Okay,
that's the truth of the situation. No, I'm also, so one of the things that I really enjoy, and kind of to bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, I'm a theater major, but I also like double majored in film, and photography has always been a really fun hobby for me. It's something I really enjoy. It's something I really like. And so most of the photos of all of my costumes are from me, or like guided by me if I have like a friend who can click the photo as I like kind of build it. And so with the Scanlan one, spoiler alert, everyone, at the end of the season, he just kind of becomes this character who is the champion of Ioun, and he gets a third eye. And so Photoshop was my friend in that instance because I have a bunch of other photos without the eye. But yes, that's actually what it is. I didn't want to go around with a third eye that day.
Okay. So horns. How difficult, because they've got weight. How difficult is to either make them or reshape them or make them form fit to your head and be comfortable? Because I can't imagine they're comfortable after 8 hours in a lot
Those
of cases.
so the gesture ones are actually super comfortable. I don't even notice they're on my head. They're made of like a styrofoam. And so they're super lightweight, and they're just like pinned to my head. Those ones I actually bought at like a Halloween store. And I put all the jewelry on them. So I like Warbla crafted all of the like the bits on the end. But I mean, like there are tons of like really simple ways to make those to be lightweight as well. So like you can make them out of cardboard and just like tape, and then maybe put some, you can put kind of like a plaster on them, but you really don't have to. You could just paint them right after you put the tape on. And then as well, there's a lot of great tutorials online with patterns with EVA foam, which again would keep them super lightweight. So those ones, no, I don't even notice them actually.
Nice. And then I love what you did with the vest and the costume there. It looks like a simple costume. I suspect it's not as simple as it looks.
For Imogen,
Yeah.
the white vest. Yeah. Yes and no. So like the shorts and the vests were simple makes, super easy, and then the handkerchief as well. But she's wearing like this stupid see-through dress. That was really hard to like source the fabric, and I got really lucky at the thrift store, and I found like a nice blue curtain that was transparent.
Curtains.
And I think like a lot of people who do make the costume would agree that sourcing that fabric is just a nightmare. Um, Sewing it is also a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because it's like always fraying, and you can see what you're sewing, so you need it to look nice inside as well. Where sometimes like you can kind of just like fake a costume and be like, I didn't want to line it. No one is going to see the inside. It doesn't need to look nice, but in this case, it does.
Nice.
I think it like has a call. Mine doesn't. I got really lucky. Mine doesn't. But like, it has like a collar as well, and like turning that dress like into it, nightmare.
Nice. Stasia. So the one on the right, the one with the big silver emblem, and how do you Did you buy that or did you make that? I'll start there.
So I locally sourced it off Etsy from a guy in Wisconsin.
Okay, cool.
And then he 3D printed it for me, and I used
Wow.
paint to paint it, make it look colorful.
It's so big.
And then it took almost the 3 months to do and get here.
Wow.
Because I started it in January, and it was due by the end of March.
So when you sourced it, they had the pattern or the 3D model already, or you had to supply that too? So
Nope, they already had everything ready to go. I found it online. I'm like, hey, I want this by this date. Can you do it? And they did it. And
then underneath it has the brown and like a plum or a eggplant.
But you can't see them.
Surcoat, I guess, or undercoat that comes out from under it. There's Is that felt? Or actually, what is that? And how did you build that? Because it looks like I don't want to say you made it by hand. I don't know.
So anything sewn and made by hand, the felt thing underneath it is supposed to be like a battle corset or like a vest of some sort. And I use suede, which I also used as for like the trim and all the other pieces on her tabard. The dark blue thing that's just blue is supposed to be a what's it called? Hamburger? No, a gambeson. But the original one I had bought that was actually made for a LARP was too bulky, so I just ended up finding the correct fabric from Joann's and making a little armored skirt.
Is it stuffed with some kind of material to give it depth? Because it looks like it has something. So what do you use for that kind of thing?
You can just go in and find quilting batten.
Okay.
Or, quilting batten. And then you can try and use, like, stuffing, but that's going to be harder to keep together and flat. So especially with quilting batting, you have to sew it down. Otherwise, it's going to move all over.
So you have to actually, I guess, sew that in and then sew the material over the top separately.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That's cool. You have a lot of headgear. Have you made a lot of headgear, or how do you find headgear? What do you do for crowns and tiaras and elf? Well, I don't say elf ears, but fey. Like it looks like horns and leaves and all those kinds of things. I mean, I see those as costuming because they're props. They're the props of the costume. Did we lose you? Nope, you're there. It froze for a moment.
There we go. Okay.
Did you hear the question or no?
The headgear, right?
Yeah, like what do you do? Because you use a lot of headgear. How do you get it? What do you do? Like, what's the process for that?
So the elf ears, I just got them off Amazon. You can get like a 3-pack of 3 different kinds. The wig, I specifically get mine from Arda. You can also use Epic Cosplay, I think was pretty common too. And then keyless horns. I bought them off Etsy, and then they just came pre-painted because they were nice enough to do that. I super glued them to a headband and called it a day.
Yeah. That's cool. I love all of it. I don't think that there's any... I think somebody said it earlier. There's no shade on any of it. I don't want anyone to ever feel like there's anything bad about doing any of these things. I think they're all very cool. All right, Haley, the first one I have to ask about is, oh my God, how did you build the giant, God, I forgot his name, the red.
Oh, that one's not me. I did the little
I thought you did
boy's
both.
outfit in front.
Okay. I thought you did both. I thought, that's TJ under there, and you're okay.
No, but I can tell you how that one is constructed.
How is that constructed? That's amazing.
Yeah,
too.
That is constructed out of EVA foam and cardboard. They used well, the shoulders have actually poster board behind them to act as a support mechanism, with the foam on top in order to give it that structure, but still be lightweight on those big shoulder pad areas. Um, but yeah,
So
yeah, it looks like a standard. It's a standard EVA foam.
you are using a material I've not seen anyone else in cosplay use. That's not true. I have seen other ones. The peacock feather one where you had to work with feathers. It's funny. I had a client that built handmade purses, all with feathers, and they're amazing. They were amazing. I do design work and I do branding work for companies. So um, I love all the cool products. And if I don't love the products, I don't work with them. So, but I found that really fascinating. Did you have to make, because I know you can stitch in feathers and things like that. Did you have to actually stitch them in, or was there glue, or what was the process for doing something like that?
Yeah, the base of that is actually like a really long fur fabric, so that I had a solid foundation to work with. I couldn't find a green, and I didn't really want to dye it, so because it had like a iridescent sparkle in it that my child really liked. So I left it white, and then I started sewing the feathers in. So you can like reinforce them at the top with some glue. And then you can like where the top two feathers come out of your stem. And then you reinforce that with glue, and then you will put your thread kind of underneath there. So you use it like kind of like a locking mechanism, like you would, like just so the thing doesn't slide and pull out. And then you can just loop it around like you would a button. Or if you have a thimble and you want to put a thread through it, you can put a thread through the stem of a feather, but they can get kind of brittle. However, we got closer to the con, and then I just started gluing them in, just tucking them under the feathers and just hot gluing them in. And it lasted all day. It was like a little asymmetrical shawl situation.
It also looks. Did you do the two costumes above? Is that your daughter and you?
The adult Scanlan is not me, but
It's
I
not you.
did
Okay.
the baby Scanlan. So,
Okay.
my I will preface that my children have not seen Critical Role, and especially at this age, because I think she was probably 5 at the time, had not seen Critical Role, but they had seen little animations that people had made, especially there's one of not like stealing buttons and like knocking somebody's cane out from under them and they fall, and she would just giggle endlessly. And she said she wanted to be green, and she wanted to be a goblin, and she wanted to go as this character. So that's why we ended up doing the Critical Role. But I sewed all of that and did like wrap harem pants and this crazy shawl situation. And but the real challenge was painting the children green, and being able to have it last during the day when they're running around. I mean, you can see in some of the photos, she was literally running in the water fountain. So that was the difficulty. But where I tend to focus is making sure that the costumes, every single one of the costumes, you can get it off in under 5 minutes for a bathroom break.
Oh my gosh.
Uh, yeah. And you can, like, you know, because when kids need to go to the bathroom, they need to go now. And so you have to be able to get it off fast. So where I try to focus is in making sure that it looks cohesive and it looks like whatever the thing is, but things are detachable and separate and removable. So you can get it on and off, and it's comfortable for them to wear, so that the weight and the comfort is there.
Nice. Do you do a lot of embroidery?
I have in the past. I will do more embroidery for something like myself that I can wear over
Yeah.
and over again. But typically with their stuff, I might here or there, but I usually go with something like hot glue. Again, you can make hot glue mimic embroidery. You can like draw on your fabric with like chalk or something. Chalk is good, or Crayola markers are great to draw on fabric with because they wash out. So you can like draw on your fabric, and then you take your hot glue gun and then you just go over the design with the hot glue gun onto the fabric and let it dry. Just don't touch it. It'll have little pulls, just don't touch it. You can cut those off later, and then you just paint it with acrylic paint or some sort of
Oh,
paint.
wow.
And then it from far away and in pictures, no one will be able to tell. It looks like embroidery.
Very cool. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
You can also use those cake molds as well. So, like, there's a lot of cake molds at a bunch like Michael's and Joann's and these other places that are like filigree and braids and rope looking things. And you can just fill the whole silicone tray with hot glue, let it dry, and then you can pull it out and paint it and you can attach it to stuff. So, if you're doing that and you need like structure, again, I'd recommend putting cardstock behind your EVA foam. It acts as a good kind of structural base. Like that crab shell that I did, the whole thing was like a poster board, and then it was very thin EVA foam.
Yeah.
And it looked like it had a lot of body to it, but it was very light.
Wow.
And a poster board's like 40 cents.
So Asteria, the green and yellow one costume,
Yes.
handmade, bought, mix. How did you get to that?
So this is Rogue from the X-Men and my boyfriend's Gambit. So the bodysuit was all bought. So that's like a green morph suit with a yellow swimsuit, and then the gloves and everything. So that was all bought. But the wig I actually did a little work on. So the wig was the ginger part was the base wig, and then I took wefts from an old white wig that had almost been trashed and pulled apart before. One final hurrah, I took a remaining wefts from that wig and sewed it to make the like Rogue part of Rogue's hair. And then I just curled and styled that myself. I cut the little bangs and curled those myself. But yeah, a good little mix.
The one on the far right,
Mm-hmm.
the material looks amazing,
Thank you.
but I can't honestly. I couldn't figure out what it was or how you would get to that. So how did you? I mean, first you said you loved to distress.
Yes.
It looks seriously distressed. How do you get like that kind of an effect, and how do you make that kind of? How do you get a look like that to work?
So this is Lisa Tepesh from Castlevania in the very first season of the Netflix show. It's the inciting incident, so it's not a spoiler. She gets burned at the stake because they think she's a witch, and that's what gets Dracula pissed off. So I wanted to do burned up Lisa Tepesh. So the sort of like potato sack looking thing that I'm wearing, I think was just a basic like cotton or something. And I literally just made a potato sack. So I laid it all out on the floor, folded over, and then I had someone, trace around me the basic shape of my body, and then I just like cut two pieces and sewed them together, because it doesn't have to be super form fitting or super precise, because she's literally just wearing a potato sack when she's burned at the stake. So what I did to create the burned effect was I cut jagged edges and hems, and then I think I tea stained it. So at the edges and then all throughout the actual garment, I brewed black tea and I essentially dyed it with tea. And then after that, I washed it and I put what's called fray check on all the edges to make them really crispy and crunchy. Because what fray check will do is it's kind of like a really thin glue and adhesive that stops fabric from fraying, but it makes it really rigid. And so for me, that was great because when things get burnt, they get really crispy and rigid. And then after I added a crap load of fray check, I actually went in with like acrylic paint and like painted the edges and dry brushed it. And this is one where I allowed it to be wrinkly because it's supposed to look a little messed up.
Yeah.
And then this photo is actually pretty edited. I made the shadows really strong for effect. So I don't know if you can see, but on my left arm, and then also on my face, I made these burned prosthetics. So what I did is I took red tissue paper and then liquid latex, and I sort of made a liquid latex paper mache to make these prosthetics, and then I painted them black and then added fake blood and all this great stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. And
Thank
I mean,
you.
all of your works, have been amazing. Everything I've seen through any of them. Let me get back to the main screen. And everybody saw those during the intermission and a lot more. I only had a few of them there that I wanted to set aside. I have a lot more questions about general cosplaying stuff rather than the specifics of your costume, but I did want to kind of show some of those. I want to talk about the money of cosplay, the cost. When you first started and you did your first cosplay, did it hint at how much things would cost later on when you're building things in the future? Or are you, actually, let me put it a different way. Do you now start with a budget or any kind of an idea in your head on how much it will cost and then build out to that? Or do you have no clue until you start assembling or pulling materials together?
I do. I mean, I'm making so many. I have to start with a budget. So, my budget's now pretty high because this is like our family vacation. So I can set the budget a little higher. But I usually this is 8 to 12 costumes. I usually have a budget of around $1,200. But for 12 costumes, that's really low, really quite low.
Yeah.
So I try to save, but again, because of the reusability of a lot of what I'm baking, I try to save where I can. So I we have a local place called the Dig and Save, and it's just these big giant bins. And you buy stuff by the pound. So it's like you buy, clothes and stuff. And I go there and find sheets is a lot of bedding. And that's usually where I start. And if I'm doing a lot of sewing, that's where I will start for fabric. Like I'm working on a custom Pokemon right now. And I made like a dress. This was just a white cotton sheet, and I dyed it green and sewed a little dress. And this
Cute.
was like a blanket that I cut apart and I let it fray. I like the fray, but it was just a blanket. And yeah, you just try to save where you can. But I try to stick to around $100 to $200 for the costumes I'm doing now when they're like really, really custom. But you can get away, like if you're just starting out, don't spend that much money.
Yeah.
I think like cosplay can easily get away with you, like get away from you. So it's really important to set a budget. I'm like, from a personal standpoint, I don't know why I cosplay. I literally hate destroying things and I hate spending money. And those are like two things that have to be done in cosplay. But I think if you do want to kind of, even if you're not setting that budget or you only have a specific amount of money that you're setting aside for cosplay, I think you should set it aside for things that I don't think you should skimp on. So like contacts, for example, like if you are someone who wants that in your costume, like please don't buy something that's scary. Like that's where you should be budgeting your money, is that like that's where you should be spending the money. And so like you can decide to go get sheets at the thrift store to make the thing you're making if you insist that you need contacts to make your costume, because the things that are actually going to impact you and like are a little bit scary, I think is like where you should be spending the money. Um, and then like as much as I think it's like nice and accessible that we have these really great wig companies, I also think that you can get away, like you would be surprised at like what people spend on a wig and how they can make it look. And like that's like a $20 wig from Amazon. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's I think you really just like once you start to get into cosplay, you can see where those like the money is a necessity and where the money isn't a necessity, and where you can kind of get away with it. I like to be really frugal with cosplay. I don't like spending a lot of money on it. But there are certain places where I will, like, if I need big, I don't know, big scary like Solera. Like if I want that, if that's what I think is like a defining trait of that character, like that's where I'm gonna spend the money. Um, because
I think
no,
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
go on, go
No,
on.
I think a lot of it also depends on your needs in crowded spaces too. So there are a lot of people, my family in particular, where you have sensory needs, and so spending the extra money to make sure you have comfort in those areas that can cause you like sensory overwhelm or to have a bad day, it's worth it to spend the extra money on that, and then try to save in other areas.
And I think you'll like kind of find those out as you're like doing the con circuit too, right?
Hmm.
Like early days, me, I was like, I want it to be authentic. I want it to be good. I'm gonna buy this really heavy chainmail armor. And then I wore that for 12 hours and I was like, never again in my life do I need to do that. Oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, I typically go into it with a ballpark with an understanding that I'm probably going to end up spending about $50 over, just because things are going to pop up. Like the Shy cosplay that I just did for WonderCon, who used the sea elf ears. At the very last minute, I actually had to get a new wig because I didn't like how the old wig was looking at all. So that put me over about $30. But because I have sort of moved away from straight up sewing and making my cosplays for the most part, I am able to recycle more, so I can sort of save where I can in that respect. And so yeah, my budget is typically $100, but no, I know I'll probably like spend a little bit more than that.
And sometimes it is cheaper just to buy the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fabric can be really expensive. Foam can add up fast. A lot of the where it tends to like compound is if you don't already have a lot of the base tools, and the base supplies. So, I have this giant can of Barge's cement that will last me, 3 years. Um, if you're not going to cosplay, if you're just starting out, you don't know if you like it, that's not something that you should invest in right away, because then that could be a cost sink. And you don't want to be into cosplay because you spent too much money on your cosplay.
Yeah.
And I think also we're talking about financial budget, but like time and energy budget is also
Yes.
very important. There are a non-zero number of cosplays that I have spent quite a bit of money on getting the materials for because I wanted to make them, or they could only be made. And the time and the energy and like the drain on me made me abandon them, and that's just money wasted. So I think also learning, to balance your expectations for what you're able to actually accomplish is also important.
I 100% agree. That's why I'd encourage anybody who's just starting out and looking into cosplay and they really want to do it, but they don't know where to start, is to look at something that is a little more closet cosplay, something that is like the pieces are buyable, and something that you can wear in other ways in your daily life. That way you can enjoy the fun and get a taste of it without like a huge commitment in both time and money.
And like con crunch can be fun. There's like a bit of like excitement in the con crunch like thing when you're like, am I gonna get this costume done for a convention? But like if you're crying and if you are upset and you are going to this convention, like remember you are going to the convention to have fun. And if it's not fun anymore, stop doing it. Because like spending time with your friends is far better than like crying in the hotel room because a button isn't in place or something. So like it those are the things that you have to think about in terms of like the time sink as well. Like are you having fun doing it? Because if you're not, it might not be for you.
There is the option. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that there are people who never make their costumes and they cosplay all the time. They, especially things like Pokemon. You can buy what are called like kigurumi, where it's pajamas. You can and you can cosplay and joke around and Pikachu it out and be in pajamas all day. So like there are options for everyone. You don't have to like I said, like dive into this like really detailed, intricate, heavy stuff. You can continue to always be in the cosplay space, and buy clothes.
What were you gonna say, Stasia?
I was gonna say, a lot of people, once they're done with the costume, they'll go ahead and resell it. So you can check out eBay or Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have extra pieces just laying around that you can take and add into your collection. And if you don't have a Joann's or a Michael's or a Fabricland, I think you said, you can check around. There's fabric warehouses where you might be able to get a deal if you get more fabric. And then usually when I go to Joann's, I check out the discounted section. Maybe it's only a little bit, but sometimes you only need a little bit, and then you have a stash going for later on.
I'm going to ask what is potentially the most personal question that will come on the show tonight, and it may make all of you uncomfortable. So, what does your workspace look like, and what is it filled with? And is it organized and clean, or is it just a disaster? Like, how much of the space does it take? And
so mine is we're going to a con in like 2 weeks. So the closer you get to the con, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
When I'm 4 months out, my workspace is organized. I actually put all my fabric on comic book boards, like, what you put in the comic book sleeve, and then I stack them like on a bookshelf, so then I can like see everything that I've got. It keeps it all pretty well organized. But then like a lot of these things take a lot, like big space to like lay out, so I work on the floor. I don't know, I'm a floor gremlin. I don't know if every cosplayer is that way. It sounds like this whole panel is that way, but I occupy the floor, and I usually will take over like the whole living room when I get close to the con. So And it becomes bin city. I have doom bins. So I have like a bin for this and a bin for this and a bin for this and a bin for this. And then at the end of the day, I can just throw everything in the bins and then shove it against the wall so that I'm not taking up the whole living room. But yeah, it gets pretty messy.
I'd like to say that mine, like, do you remember the scene in Howl's Moving Castle when Howl is like passed out in the bed and we're looking at his room? Like, that's how I live my life. I just like bits and bobs, and I collect a lot of things with the intention, like, my brain goes, we could use that for something. And then it sits in a drawer, and because it's in the drawer, it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And then I make the thing, I buy something else to make it, and then I open the drawer and I'm like, oh, right. I had something like that. But I'm here to agree that I think, like, relatively the space is like pretty good, and then like the date starts to creep up on you, and then you forget like basic needs and like forget everything else that you're doing in life. The only thing that saves me is that I have pets, and so any kind of debris needs to be picked up because string is scary. Wig hair, like plastic synthetic wig hair, also very scary. And that's like a cost I don't want to put into cosplay, is the vet bill.
Yeah.
So just to keep those things in mind for those areas as well.
Same with the medical bills and like staying up every night till 3, 4 in the morning or all night the week before the con during that con crunch. It is more likely that you will catch the crud when you go to the con. So, keep that in mind when you're planning.
Yeah, one of the reasons I kind of moved away from like, fabricating my own cosplays is because I have a very limited workspace. Basically, my entire life is in my one room, because I live with other people, and there's also animals in the house, and I don't want to get their hair if I go out to the living room, that kind of thing. So I basically just have like a card table and then maybe 3 feet by like 4 feet of floor space to work with. So I do some making of stuff on my own, but I don't have a lot to work with space wise. So pretty much everything just gets shoved in the closet in like a specific corner. And then I have like one drawer of my dresser that's just cosplay stuff, and then one tub that goes under the bed of wigs. And anytime I need to go searching, I just go to one of those 3 places, and then I go from there.
Nice.
All of my work is also done on the floor. Floor gremlin for the win. My partner recently started doing cosplay stuff, and he has a table, and that was really cool to work on because my back didn't hurt suddenly. And then as for organizing and stuff, I recently started using the big boxes that paper comes in, and I just shove my cosplays in there, and then it's all nice and organized.
Nice.
And I too am a bits and bobs person, so there are random boxes scattered throughout of stuff that I could have used, but I did not.
Do you find more joy in the process of creating your costumes or in showing them off?
I get more joy in the planning of the costume than either the making or the showing off.
So it's all downhill from the start.
It kind of is. I really enjoy like the deconstructing, like what is the most efficient way to make this? What is the cheapest way to make this? Like how to like puzzling out how I'm gonna put it together is very engaging for me. And then like I enjoy making it until I don't. And then it's usually that last 10% that I'm just like, I'm over it. I've looked at it too much. I'm done. But yeah, I enjoy the planning part, the organizing and puzzling out how how the pieces can come together. Like, how am I going to make an axe with a floating orb of lava in the middle of it? Like, how am I gonna do that? And coming up with how that would mechanically work. That's my favorite part.
I like aspects of, there's so many aspects about the end result that I like, but it's because it lets me do the other thing that I really like to do, and that's photography and kind of this other form of expression while also kind of creating a scene of a character that like a lot of other people also enjoy, or that I enjoy, or that like a few people enjoy. And so like I'm an extrovert by nature. I do get more energy when I engage with people than when I sit at home by myself. And so, like, I thrive off being able to, like, share in that kind of joy with other people. And, like, that's not always a positive experience. Sometimes it's weird. But, like, for the most part, it's usually, like, I don't know if it's like the type of characters that I cosplay or tend to cosplay. But there is like a joy in seeing someone be really excited about the way you look, and it be someone that they really care about, or like a character that like changed their lives in some way, or just like a show or story that has impacted them, and then they get to like kind of experience that with you. And so that's my favorite part. Because like I said, I don't really like cutting up fabric, and I don't enjoy the process of things being made unless I do something and it like you have an idea and it works. Like when I made my Madoka costume, there are no zippers or buttons, or she's just wearing it. And so to simulate that on your body, and like character designers never really think about what would that be like if it was real. And so you having to translate that, with that costume in particular, I hid the zipper like under the, she has like a like frills and like a bunch of like, I don't know, just like some stuff going on at the front of the dress. So I made that a panel, and I put a zipper on the front of the dress, and then I pulled the panel up to like clip it so that it would stay and it would hide how I got into the dress, and it worked. And so when that stuff happens, I really enjoy that part. But if you're doing it and then it doesn't work, it becomes a little aggravating to have to like rework that. So there are aspects of the build, but at the end of the day, that's a long-winded way of saying I just like talking to people about the things I like.
Nice.
For me, I also like the planning a lot because I'm a very oriented person, and I like to add as many character Easter eggs as I can, or little hints of accuracy that I can.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did Drusilla for San Diego Comic-Con special edition, and I was kind of a nightmare because I was like, I don't want to make the necklace. I don't know where to get the necklace. So I found the replica necklace on Etsy, and it like saved the cosplay for me. I was like, I can't wear it if I don't have the necklace. So I like planning it and getting all the pieces and compiling them and doing all that. But I also just like being in the full cosplay at the end, and you know, knowing that I look good, and interacting with people, as Grayson said, and just I don't know, just like the once the whole thing is done, I can breathe. And then also like going back to the very beginning of the stream, like that performative aspect of, you know, someone might say something to you that is relevant to the character, and then you respond in character. I also love to do that and have that witty banter with people.
Yeah.
I honestly prefer actually making it. I like sitting down and figuring out how things are supposed to go together. I like asking people, hey, do you think it goes like this, or do you think it goes like this? and finding different pieces that'll put the thing together overall. And also at the end of the day, it is fun going out and being that character and showing it off and performing. It's not something I originally thought I would like, but it's grown on me.
Yeah. So, what would be your words of wisdom to somebody just starting cosplay? This will be the final question, by the way. We're at our mark, and I want to make sure that I respect your time.
I would say don't be like me and let things be imperfect. Like, just breathe. Most of the time, no one's gonna know. Only you're the one who's gonna know. And if that's okay, if that's like good enough with you, then it's good enough. Just, it's for fun, and don't get too in your head about it.
I think my words of wisdom would be do it for yourself and do it for no other reason. I think we live in a day and age where social media and clout is really important for a lot of people, and I think that could be really stressful. And when I started cosplaying, I did it because my friends wanted to kind of do it, and we did it together. And that felt really nice to share in that experience together. And when I started comparing myself to other people is when I started to really dislike doing it. And then I found why I liked it again when I cosplayed a character that was personal for me. And so I think always reminding yourself that you're doing it for yourself. So, like Asteria said, even if other people don't like the costume, but you're really proud of it, that's all that matters.
I'd say in addition to that, because that's like, I think that's kind of the mantra of everyone, is that you're your own worst critic. But take pictures. Don't let that voice in your head tell you that it's not good enough, it's not where you wanted it, so you're not going to photograph it or take pictures in it. You're like, document like your experience and have fun with it, and like enjoy being present, but take pictures. Don't let your body dysmorphia get in the way of your fun. Again, you're your own worst critic, but like you'll wish you had pictures of your hard work later on, because I promise you, if you stick with this, you will be very proud of those things you did starting out and how hard you worked and what it looked like. You'll be proud of your first things, and like, even if they aren't, you can't compare you with 10 years of experience cosplaying with you with 0 years of experience cosplaying, and you'll wish you had a picture or two of that first thing that you made.
Yeah.
I think my final words would be don't be afraid to ask questions. Yeah. There are Discords groups, there are Twitters, there are Facebooks. Go in and join them, find like minds. Most people are super friendly to talk and answer questions, give you help. Join your local convention Discords. There's all kinds of people in there.
Nice. Well, I want to thank you all for joining tonight and sharing your accumulated wisdom. It's been just an amazing show. You're all very personable, and you're out, you speak up and are outspoken. I love that. I'm going to let you all go around and say who you are, where you can be found. Let's go in reverse order. We'll start with Haley, and then we'll come back around.
Yeah, I'm Haley Sunavander. I don't post a lot on the socials, but I'm primarily on TikTok and Instagram. At some point in the next year or two, I will have an Etsy site where you can buy unique cosplay patterns for children, focusing primarily at first on female presenting characters for kids in the nerdy genres because they're very difficult to find otherwise. Things like, Squirrel Girl, Spider Gwen, Lady Thor, and, some of those types of characters. So patterns for children.
All right. Stasia.
Hi, I'm Stasia. You can find me at Sassy Kasse on both Twitter and Bluesky. I do most of my work in the tabletop industry and actual plays for tabletop games. So look around for casting calls or cool games you might see you want to play.
Nice. Grayson?
Hi, I'm Captain Grayson, or you could just refer to me as Grayson. You can find me on all imaginable social media platforms under Captain Grayson. There's an X instead of an A on the first A of that. You could also find me on our actual play called Charisma Saving Show, where I play a bard named Locke. If you want to do that, you don't have to, but...
Nice. And Asteria.
I'm Warden Asteria, Warden Asteria on Instagram and Twitter. I also do actual play TTRPG stuff. You can find me on Chance Encounters RPG on YouTube, where I play a superhero in training, going to superhero college, who can really just make you stop. Just stop. With pheromones that they release from their hair. And that's their superpower.
That's cool. I love that. I'm Scott, and this is ZealZaddy. I want to thank you for joining us on Story Talk tonight. This will be up on YouTube and podcast in about a week. You can catch our series finale of our Old Gods of Appalachia game on Tuesday night. The last week was just insane and awesome. And we'll see you in a week for part 2 of this when we talk about makeup and hair. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.